Ahmed, you can start the introduction. Just this is podcast number, what, four?
4. Wow. Okay. 4 is the unlucky number in China.
Yeah,
Not a good thing.
exactly. It is.
Speaking of
How's
numbers,
your week been, bro? How's your week been?
yeah, it's been
Friday.
good. It's been good. It's been
Yeah.
a full week of just talking to a lot of people.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the job. Instead of I like sitting and coding stuff. I really do. Like I've been really enjoying just sitting and ticketing systems and whatnot, and been just extending the use as much as possible with Midfleet. And I'm happy to see that Midfleet is becoming better and better. Next week we're launching version 2 of the governance engine that we built. So hopefully we have a better control over the work that is being done inside Midfleet. We're testing it out, but yeah, it's going, and we've been talking to some potential partnerships, some ecosystem partners, but also a lot of different developers. But yeah, so that's been the good week so far, and we have some stuff to talk about costs in sessions and agents and tokens and whatnot.
Token usage,
But yeah,
token explosion.
yeah, but how was your week?
Man, it's been busy. It's been really busy. It's been good. Exactly as you said, talking to a lot of people, trying to find also the right people to talk to. This space is quite big. A lot of people are working in this space and trying to solve a lot of different problems. And I think the learning, at least for me this week, has been there is a new generation coming up, and the old generation, they're struggling a little bit. Talking to a little bit of people in different companies, and they say, hey, we don't have any business, and it's hard to. I just to give you a little bit of context, what I'm talking about. Today, creating a product, you can do it with 2 persons. None of you have to be engineers, really. And you can launch a product in production in 6 months. And compare that with the old school, the people that I've been talking to, who has been doing a product development for 4 years. They've been launched for 3 years, and they still don't have any customers. And they had to let go of a lot of people because the business, the product they built was too broad and not narrow. So that's a little bit of what I'm also feeling in this space. It's like, this is what's going on, new people, new generation with new thinking is coming up. And it's really interesting space to be in.
Yeah, I think a lot of the companies were working in this sort of legacy part of the industry has been so fully focused on building products. But what I think is happening for us is that we have not actually built up that much of a product, but a narrative, a way to work, a way to execute, right? So, for me, when I'm speaking to agents is one part of the work, but it's freed up so much more time to think about what kind of company this is and what mission we have and how product is solving a company problem, right?
Yeah.
So it's less about, hey, let's get all these product teams together. Let's create some sprints around problem A, B, C, have some hypothesis, let's validate it, and then get customers. Now it's become, we're still building, but the building is building itself. It's lesser of an issue for us, and we can focus more on sort of strategic conversations.
Absolutely. I think that's where we are. And it's been a really interesting journey. Starting 6-7 months ago, where we were just thinking, hey, what is this? What are we doing?
But it wasn't 6-7 months ago. We started with something else 6-7 months ago. We started building with agents. But Midfleet itself is what, 3-4 months?
That's what I'm
Really?
saying. Yeah, exactly.
Ah.
Just the total journey and how fast it goes. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, you don't have time today to but come and we're gonna do these epics and we're gonna have stories and we're gonna have this team and developers. Like, this is not what's going on. Like, you have to have understand the problem, the space you're in, and then you have to just run with it. And you can achieve so much if you're focused today and you have the right understanding. And I think, yeah, there's a totally new world coming up. Read that article of programmers trying to find the 300 application, didn't find any job. And this is happening in Sweden, in a country where, the employment law is one of the stricter in the world. And before, having a degree in programming was not like you would get a job.
But that's
It
not
was
the
a
case
non-issue.
anymore. We talked about this like 5 years ago. And
Yeah,
I remember
exactly.
like you getting offers right, left, and center. And we talked about, hey, look, one day, very, very soon, all this is going to
Yeah,
disappear. Why? It's
absolutely.
the switchboard problem, right? We're educating switchboard operators essentially, or even before that, when computers were just these punch cards, right? It's that we're in that verge of sort of digitizing the whole coding idea of how that's, or making it autonomous completely, of how code is generated. But it goes back into, yeah, not two non-engineers can start something, but we have an advantage here is that we have some form of an understanding of how systems work and how they are architected, right? So
Absolutely.
architecture, I think, is becoming super important. It's not the coding itself. And I think everybody knows that. But going into university 3 years later, then your skills become obsolete. It's terrible. It's terrible.
It
But
is
that's
terrible. It is
how
terrible.
quickly the industry is moving.
Yes, and I mean, like any recommendation I will give to anyone who's starting in university today is just systems design and system thinking. I will say that's the most important thing. Not about understanding syntax or programming, language. That's just obsolete. That doesn't matter at all today.
With all due
And like,
respect to all these like big schools, also like MIT, Stanford, and whatnot. I know you, Raju. You're like a self-taught pioneer in that sense. You didn't need like university education to go through all of this. And technology by itself and where we are is moving fast by design. So are you gonna spend 3 years, and by
3 years is a
third year,
lifetime today, man. Yeah,
4 years even for a master's degree, the stuff that you learned in the first year is obsolete by graduation. It's like,
exactly.
okay, so where do you take it? Man, the internet is your friend. Google is your friend, or ChatGPT or whatever model is there for your friend. You're gonna learn from them. I learned
Just
how
go
to
to
essentially
Midfleet
look at
Learning.
systems. Yeah,
Yeah.
go to Midfleet Learning.
About that. Yeah, just
Yeah.
about that a little bit. Like, we're gonna improve the Midfleet Learning space as well. Get you guys a lot more information and data and education in terms of AI and how you can use AI and become, better with it and use it in your environment and business or learning or whatever. So,
100%.
it's gonna come soon. We have plans for that as well.
And if there's anyone who wants to try out Midfleet, go into midfleet.ai. Just let us know what you guys think. You can just put it in the comments below, or reach out to us, or in the chat. So, Raju, what are we talking about today? Not just this, right?
No, I think a hot topic recent this week has been token usage and cost, and also context.
Okay, so what is just give us the sort of statement of the problem that's happening right now.
So, Gemini 3.7 came out, right? The Flash one. And I saw Factory post, like Factory.ai was posting. You can use Gemini 50% off until January. And I was like, okay, sure, let me try it out. I put in $25 onto the API and I started to using it with Midfleet. And 10 minutes in, I was like, okay, $25 is already gone, and this is supposed to be like 50% off. And the reason was just because, building Midfleet, we have so much context, it's so much stuff going on. And it's not, to be honest, Midfleet is not a big project in that sense. We are trying to keep it still clean and lean, but every time you send a request to the API, to Gemini, OpenAI, Cloud, wherever, the model is processing the whole context, right? So if I just ask them a question like, hey, what's going on with this future? It's gonna take all the context related to the previous conversations we have had and inject that into the API, and then the API is gonna, try to understand that response and then give it back. So this is totally like, it's not an efficient way to do this or solve this problem. Kimi doesn't actually do this, and I was doing a comparison. So this is where the conversation comes up. Kimi actually doesn't do it. It has caching. So locally, it does the caching for whatever it needs, and then it sends whatever is most important to the Kimi API. So in this way, you're saving a lot of token usage. So the question then becomes, why are the other provider not doing this? Right?
It's interesting.
Is it? Are you sending free money out to the provider?
It is. I mean, it can't be. What is it? What is it if it's not? Hey, let's bump up the cost of how much it costs to actually use this. And are they really concerned about their GPU limits? Yeah, maybe, right? But at the same time, their business model is to sell as much as possible. And if they can give you LLM calls for just looking through context, they will probably do it and charge you for it heftily. We were just talking to this company, Takara.ai, just recently before this. Super interesting solution of how they actually look at this problem and how they use CPUs instead of GPUs to do that sort of context retrieval. Which they said, how much was it of total costs or of total tokens? Was it 60, 70%?
Oh man, it was 60%. Ridiculous numbers. I mean, I was just mind blown. Like, is this the reality of where we are going? But yeah, it was 60% was just context and token uses for context, and 5% was actually the code.
It was reasoning was like what, 7-8%? Was it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
5%,
something like. They just showed us that. Frankly, I haven't had too much of a look at token costs. I've used subscriptions and I've kept my limits within it. But I've always been interested of how much money actually companies can just solve by using solutions like Takara, by controlling the work that's happening in the infrastructure with Midfleet. How can they control that aspect? How can they put real budgets in place? But yeah, it's both technological and infrastructure.
But let's do a simple exercise. Imagine an enterprise organization with 10,000 developers using token usage, and the bill is 1 billion. Okay, you're saving 60% of that. So I mean, the money is ridiculous, and what you can save. I think Takara has a really good edge there, and what they can do in that term and their solution. But I think this is the new economy. This is the new. We talked about this before as well. The new oil is token today. AI token, and how much you can optimize for it. Because if you can optimize for it, then you can use it for other things in your business, right? So I think that's gonna be the new. I already talked about it. Like we have in for cloud, like this cloud FinOps roles that was before. In the future, you're gonna see AI token FinOps engineer or whatever. So this is gonna come up. Yeah,
interesting. No, it's. I've looked. It was an article like this. Was way back a year ago, which is like 10 years in this industry.
10 years, yeah.
It was Uber. Was it Uber? They had exhausted their entire token budget in less than 3 months, and that was the full budget for the year. They consumed it in less than 3 months.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. And all of this forecasting they have is the forecasting they're gonna. What are you gonna forecast? How do you like? So, because if you're doing the forecast, then it means you think you know how much you're spending in terms of token, but you don't have any data because this is so new. So you can't really forecast it either. You have to let it go for a couple of years. So interesting problem. I saw it myself. Had a conversation with Takara today, me and Ahmed. It was really interesting. And I think this is going to come up more and more. Organization will need help with this. And I think whoever is working in this space, you guys need to understand how token usage is working, how the cost is, the spend and the cost, because it's also a knowledge and something you need to know.
So give our listeners some idea of what we're talking about. Like how do you do it? What are the best practices according to you? What do you see the best way to actually control the token spend?
I think
Is it through
if you are
technology or the
just
through practice or some
yeah, I'm
best
just gonna
practices?
give it
What is it?
super simple, right? If you're someone who's new in this space and trying to understand it, I would say just compare your usage between OpenAI and Kimi, for example. That's the easiest way to do it. If it's a little bit more complex and you have a lot of agents working and you need to understand the token usage, then I would say you need to use something like Midfleet or something because you have to plug it in somewhere. Um, because going into the platforms for the providers, they're just going to show you like that metric is not really helping you and it's not telling the whole story, right? It's going to give you what you need for their token spending. But in Midfleet, we don't look at it in that way, right? We are looking in how can you maximize any agent and any model and provider and minimizing that token spendage and budget. So that's a problem that we're looking at as well. So I would say just go with Kimi. Just go with Kimi.
I think it's both. You learn when the context window fills up with one agent, you start a new thread and you try to basically put it in the same repository so it understands where it is. And the more it grows, the more it um, gets difficult for that context, the correct context to be retrieved. But I think it's cleaning it up once in a while because context becomes stale. Why would it look through and like that? So you need to have some best practices around cleaning it
Absolutely
up a
agree
little
with that.
bit.
Yes.
Keep it fresh, keep it, even have an agent to clean it up a little bit for you. But I think that sort of as a hygiene factor going in is clean up your repo where the context lives, start with new sessions, try to keep it the prompts as specific as possible. I'm a notorious vague prompter, so I know a lot of tokens just, get thrown away or they're trying to understand my intent.
Yeah, I'm
But this
same as
is
you. Yeah. I'm not optimizing for that. I can just, but that's really great ideas and tips. I think I agree with you to 100%. I mean, I'm not the one who is planning my, okay, I'm gonna prompt this and I'm gonna do like a long prompt. Like I'm not optimizing for that, but that's a way to do it. And then, instead of having this, hey, how are you, and back and forth. I think also it depends on how you are as a person and how you want to interact with these agents and models. And the way to clean it up is uh, really interesting. And also not having long going threads for days. I've had that issues before. Like if you are working with agents and you just have them for days, they're gonna fill up the context. And then all of that context, as Ahmed said, you're not really using the ones that you started with because while you started with the problem, that problem changed, you solved a lot of problem, and now that is stale information you're always sending.
Yeah, 100%. Also, your information systems where your information actually lives. Say, for instance, you have like 9,000 issues in your GitHub repository. Should it have that much? Oh, it's an organizational issue as well. How do you want to clean up? How do you want to keep focus of the information that exists in your own systems? Like I know my Notion is filled up to the brim. How do I clean it up? Now it takes so much time to search through it. And it's an information discipline, I guess, data discipline of how to manage it. And as you said, also, fresh it, clean it up, open a new thread, don't let it run for days. Um, and I noticed that the more context it has, the more drifts, right? And it goes
Yeah.
and does the wrong thing. Then I'm sitting there all of a sudden and just babysitting.
Some other thing as well, like if you're doing a specific task with an agent in a thread, don't suddenly just jump off and start with the same thread trying to solve another problem. That's not a good
I've done
idea.
that so many times.
The agent is gonna be like, oh, what's going on? And, he's gonna be totally stupid and drift and not understanding it all. So keep them in check, one problem per thread, or, you're still in the same context for that problem. And another thing that you said, Ahmed, that I think is very interesting is what happens when you're starting in an organization having epics? Because right now our GitHub is growing exponentially with issues, right? What happens with organizations when they have like millions of epics, and how do they can handle that and control that?
I think that's, again, goes back to data discipline. Are you separating them out into their own repos so they don't touch each other? Like sometimes it's not just about context, but that it's dangerous to have them just interconnected that way. How do you sort of separate the branches? How do you isolate the environments correctly? I think it is about that, but God knows how it's actually solved on the agent, as it is a black box. It can go in and try to access different systems, especially when there's so many agents in production. But that's also the problem that we're looking at very closely, is that how do we keep that, separation of duties, separation of environments and repositories, etc., in a good way, controlled throughout the path of work. And so if you and I are working on two things concurrently, but in the same code base, how do we make sure that we're not crashing into each other when context especially is changing? So how do we lock it? We do it through claims. We do it through sort of boundary setting at the edges of work, where an agent cannot connect to another system that it's already approved to be core. But yeah, GitHub is still a great tool to actually separate those things. But agents, again, they can act within their own accord. You need to have the guardrails in place.
And a lot of bloat can come up, and I think it's an interesting problem also to look at in there. So anyone that is out there and looking for a problem to solve, that's one that you can look into. I think, what do you feel? Anything else you want to take up today?
Actually, a silly question. After the conversation we had with those guys, Takara, it made me think about how search works, because they work with like retrieval of correctness in context, or the correct context, right? By using like old technology, not old, but sort of relevancy inputs, and not necessarily LLMs to retrieve that context. Made me think of sort of how blockchain works, and sort of decentralizing that search somehow, where you have kind of, okay, the raw data sent somewhere, then you have AI computation, and then you have the resultant artifact with a hash and proof and record and reusable result.
Maybe that's a side project for you and
right?
Midfleet.
It's like, how can blockchain kind of actually avoid repeating AI work? Right? Sort of read 200 documents, but where do you extract that facts without necessarily searching for it? Do you understand what I mean?
That if there's a ledger this is the interesting thing, right? So when you start to work with Midfleet and you're really inside of it, like you're thinking about solving problem in a totally different dimension, right? It's like, it's not like more like, can I do this? It's more like, what's the best way? And, it's a little bit like, okay, this is, I can touch it in this way. it's the fine grains now more than, what you want to take on, what's interesting problem that you want to take on, and how you can think about it. It's more, more about how you as a person thinking of a problem and communicating that with the agent, and then anything is possible. For me, sometimes I have a lot of side projects, as you know. I just try to focus right now on Midfleet and left everything, because it can become a lot of side projects, because you have the opportunity to do it today.
Yeah, well,
Aspect.
what we're building gives people back that time to actually think about these things, right? Is to have some form of control and mandate over the work that is being done. Cost aside, obviously that's a huge part of it. And I think you're also building something on budget settings for each agent and each project, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So something we're coming up with ways to control that cost. But I think essentially it boils down to how are you actually controlling that work? And with Midfleet, I'm going to do some tests also later and post it about, token cost and doing just through open code and a Grok model versus Midfleet. What are the savings there? And we can put it out. But yeah, nothing really comes to mind other than that. Any closing thoughts, Raju?
Yeah, I think whoever watching this, I think you guys have to get into this space. It is a window, I think, that is a great opportunity, and a window that is closing in. So if you have any thoughts or any ideas that you thought that, hey, I really want to try this out, I think this is the moment. And Midfleet can be there to help you out, and we are also here to help you out. And I will say, if you haven't subscribed, guys, please do it. Help us out in that sense, and like the video if you think this information and the stuff that we are giving you is valuable.
Try out Midfleet at midfleet.ai and reach out to either Raju or Ahmed at midfleet.ai. Do you have any questions, or post it down in the comments below? I've always wanted to say that.
Then you got it, bro.
There we go.
Yeah. Other than that, take care. Have a nice
Okay.
Friday, and see you next week.
See you in GitHub. Bye now.